Hello and good evening. I'm Melisa Idris. Welcome to Consider This. This is the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. In recent months, a string of violent incidents in Malaysian schools have shaken parents and educators alike. Now, these are not isolated events. They point to something deeper about how we raise our children, the power dynamics they learn, and the violence that they see around them. So how do we make sense of all of this? Is it a failure of discipline? Is it about mental health? Is it something far more systemic, or is it all of the above? Because the question we want to ask tonight is not just how we confront violence in schools, but how do we prevent it? Joining me on the show to discuss this further is Datuk Dr Hartini Zainuddin, who is a child rights activist and the founder of Yayasan Chow Kit. Tini, thank you so much for being on the show with me today. What was your reaction, or what have been your observations of the public reaction to the recent cases of violence in schools, especially the gender-based violence dimension of it all? I'm wondering what you think we're missing in the way we're talking about these incidences.
Well, first off, I'm so happy because you're actually the first person outside of the child protection group that's actually acknowledging the fact that there is gender-based violence, right? And that's something that's sort of, you know, inherent and yet not really spoken about. But we'll park that on the side for 1 second. I think the outrage is understandable, but again, and it's also predictable because it's reactive and it's incomplete. And, you know, and again, we're off. We're going to blame social media. You know, I was telling my child protection group, I can guarantee we're going to start banning stuff or saying that, you know, we need to curb TikTok or video games. But that's not the reason alone that created this violence, right? It's really the fact that, you know, what we're seeing today and the social media and TikTok and all these other things is really amplifying what was already there. It's the anger, it's the neglect, the loneliness, the shame, the not having channels to be able to express themselves. The schools, and really it's the adults that have built systems that, you know, sort of demand compliance, but, you know, you deny children that safe space to feel or to speak. They don't know who to talk to, who to trust. And we are confusing discipline with dignity of children, yeah? So then, you know what? It's no shock then that when children explode, we call it moral decay, but they're not monsters born out of screens or social media. They're children born out of environments because we fail to protect them and we fail to guide them.
Can I just get you to elaborate? What did you mean by we have been mistaking discipline with dignity?
So the thing that we've been emphasizing in school is that, you know, the children should be seen and not heard. Just learn, just go in. We put them in a space, you know, a box, and say, go to school. Your job is to study. Don't answer, don't question, don't query, right? And don't do anything. Just study for the test and get out. Well, that's, you know, and if you don't, then we're going to discipline you, right? Because we're going to silence you, or we're going to punish you. And we're talking about, you know, bringing back, or it's never left, corporal punishment, etc. and stuff. So it's really about discipline and punishment than it is about nurturing and educating. Schools don't educate anymore. We teach them to be disciplined robots. We teach them to adhere and do as they're told. And if not, they'll get punished. That's what we're teaching. We're not educating children. And it's been like that for a while.
You've been working with children in crisis for many years now, Tini.
And I'm trained as an educator.
Yeah, and you trained as an educator, absolutely. How do we even begin to address this? Help children who have committed violent acts or gender-based acts, especially gender-based violence?
I think, first of all, we need to acknowledge and recognize the fact that these children who harm are often children who've been harmed or neglected, or something happened, right? Something happened, or something, you know, but something happened and it was not acknowledged. And so I think first of all, we need to say that every violent act by a child, by anyone actually, is a message. Something happened to me, no one's listening to me, right? So they need interventions, and not incarceration alone, which means you need, proper assessment for trauma, not being accused of crimes even before they go to court. They've been exposed to abuse, neglect, toxic environments. They've had no space to be able to question what happened. We need, UNICEF has a term, it's restorative justice, right? We need more restorative justice. Not a punitive approach to addressing issues. Programs that, where children learn empathy, responsibility, accountability, not humiliation and not pain, right? This call, for example, for, corporal punishment and, caning the child. I'm like, exactly who does that satisfy? And what is the message? The message is when an adult, I'm sorry, but it's true, when an adult gets frustrated with you, they're going to hit you. But the child doesn't learn anything. They just learn pain. So what exactly are you doing? It's futile. It makes no sense. The satisfaction is from the adult point of view, not from the child learning anything.
Right. So having said that, what role do parents play? And I'm asking because so much of it starts from home. And what would you like to see parents be more cognizant of, especially in light of this trend of violence taking place on school grounds?
It's easier said than done. Yes, parents are the first line of defense, right? The first line of protection. But many parents nowadays can't do it on their own, right? Loads of parents are struggling. They're working 2-3 jobs. Many are single parents, and they have their own trauma where they never got the help that they needed and stuff. And honestly, our culture is such, and Malaysians are such that, we're ashamed to ask for help, right? We don't. Everybody works in silos. That's how the community is now, right? We don't ask help the way we did before. So, I think, parents in itself, they need support. There needs to be workshops, hotlines. We need community support, so, and spaces where, neighborhood spaces where families can talk and share, where kids get to play together, where, people make time to get what it is they need, right? That space to say, and to sort of have downtime and to be able to talk about things. And, putting blame because you're isolated is just wrong. And I think a lot of things that need to happen is community collaboration. But the government, the powers that be, need to create these channels for parents and families to be able to heal and talk, and a space for children to be able to heal and talk. We don't have child safe spaces anymore. Schools are not it. So where exactly is it?
What does a child safe space look like, and how can we go about building that type of environment for our schools?
I think first of all, what's most important is the fact that, children must have this place where they are seen and they're heard. It's a place where they're not afraid to speak out, right? And no one's going to report them, and they know that whatever they say isn't going to be judged. It used to be time and space in school. It's not that, obviously. I think we need to reset. Our schools need to reset. Our communities, our society has to reset. And we need a national commitment that, no one under our watch, no child, it doesn't matter if it's your child, another person's child, legally, etc., and still biologically, but that no child in the community, in society, under our watch will go unseen or unheard. We say, what's going on, so that every school, and we're talking about schools here, yeah, not at home, that you have to have that safeguarding child protection policy, right? You can't say, oh, I'm a toughest school, sorry, we don't need to do it because we're under the religious or the state department. That doesn't work. You have children, you need safeguarding policies, you need child protection policies. That's one. You need trained, trauma-informed, trained counselors. You need trained child protection officers who know what child protection policies are. You need clear reporting mechanisms for parents and children. And beyond structure, really, can we really say now that children are a priority in this country? Because they're not, and they are not. just the parents' responsibility. We know parents cannot cope. And so we need to sort of change that mindset and make that shift, right? So because it's not, you know, I've heard CCTVs la, locks la, fences la. That's not it. People, the root cause is empathy. The root cause is dignity. The root cause is, you know, understanding that you cannot see things from an adult point of view, that this is about the children, and children become the center, that we must protect children, that we must listen to them. And we have a duty to educate. And educate is not teaching them what we want them to hear and listen, and giving them the space to be able to express themselves. You know, so I don't know, Melissa, I just think we need to build schools around children and not around what adults want.
It seems to me that the diagnosis of the problem is already there, that we seem to know what we need to do. Do you think you're seeing momentum, or at least the public call or the public momentum to shift the political will, the needle on this, so that this is what we envision for our children in schools? Do you think it's going to move in that direction, Tini?
I hope so. Although I'm hearing a lot of noise now, right? So, you know, the fact that the general public is confused, and is this an SPM issue, whether the boys are going to sit for SPM, or, you know, oh my God, is this child, you know, having certain issues, or, you know, that's a picture of the boy. Really? Really? That is not the issue. The issue is, what are schools for? Are they doing what they're told? Are we keeping the kids safe? And stop building the schools around about the needs and wants of adults. Build the schools around the needs and wants of children who need to learn. What are they learning? Well, they're definitely learning what adults are showing them. It's not. Children are learning from someone. It's not just other children. It's mostly adults. So let's do that. So until we do that, and like I said, until we have that mind shift and a commitment that we're going to prioritize children and make them the center of everything in schools, which are meant for them, then we're not going to see any difference. We're going to be revisiting this problem again. What is happening is not because of just issues that are cropping up now. What is happening is a destruction and the rot that's been sitting in schools and the education systems for decades. It's just exploded. What did we expect?
Tini, thank you so much for for lending us your insights and bringing some refocusing into our public conversations about these issues. I appreciate your time.
I think what the minister said today about what she's trying to do is on the right track. Now we just have to implement it. We do know the solutions. We just need to get it done.
We seem to know the solutions. Tini, thank you so much for your time. Datuk Dr Hartini Zainuddin there. We're going to take a quick break here and consider this. We'll be back with more. Stay tuned. Hi, welcome back to Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris. We've been talking about the systemic failures that allow for violence to take root in schools. But what about the patterns behind these acts themselves? What do they say about our society? Joining me on the show now is criminologist and law lecturer Dr. Haezreena Begum Abdul Hamid. Dr. Haezreena, you wrote a wonderful op-ed a day ago, I think, and you talked about the cases of school violence are not isolated anomalies. In fact, you wrote that they are indicators of a broader criminological trend, a criminological insight. And criminological insight can help us understand how and why this escalation occurs. Can you maybe begin our conversation today by elaborating what you mean by that? Why do we need to take a lens of a criminologist to understand why violence happens in schools?
Okay, thank you. That's a very good question, Melissa. Okay, yeah, as per what I've written, this incidents that we are seeing, it's like opening a can of worms where, you know, everything is coming out, like from we hear from bully to rape to murder, and then today another rape case. So the thing that the most people will say, oh, you know, nowadays, you know, things are happening, but as if it has not happened before. So that's the problem. The problem is that we have been actually in denial for so long. There's so much of secrecy, so much of silence before this, that to the extent that people don't know of things that's happening, what is happening in schools. And then suddenly when these things are being featured in media, then you have people recording these incidents, then everyone gets shocked. Sometimes I'm like, why are you even shocked? Because these things are not a new scenario. It has been happening. It's just that we are keeping we turn a blind eye. And this matters has been swept under the rug for so long, and now it's sort of burst open. In a way, I would say thanks to the media to by highlighting this, because then people will know the severity of these problems.
Yeah, I want to take a closer look at the gender-based violence dimension of these acts, these violent acts. A lot of these cases tie back into the broader issue of gender and power dynamics. Talk to me a little bit about how gender-based violence manifests itself in schools and why it is doing that.
We're still fixated with gender roles, with stereotypical roles of men being masculine and women taking the second position, women being subjugated. And I know that there's some figures like, you know, Andrew Tate, for example, who is supposed to be a hero for those who openly proclaim to be misogynist. And we even have Malaysian ones who, I don't have to mention names, but even on the Instagram would identify himself as a misogynist, talk about, you know, testosterone levels being so high, and hence, you know, men being uncontrollable, and women having to just take a back step, stay at home, and just you know, rear children. So a lot of these narratives are circulating, and you can find that on the social media. I wouldn't blame social media. Actually, people are just blaming, oh, it's because of social media, is because of these elements of pornography, this element of, you know, too much of exposure. I don't see that as a standalone thing at all. My view, it is a it's a there's a list of factors that has culminated into something, and developed into this a mindset, a kind of thinking where individuals adopt this thinking. Stemming from this.
So how do we deal with it then? How do we handle gender-based violence amongst minors, particularly because I wonder the perpetrators themselves are still children, so we have to think about whether frameworks are equipped. Dr. Haezreena, are there gaps in the frameworks? What do you think?
Yeah, this goes back to the developmental factor. So at home, is the home the place that they live, their parents, their family, their immediate relatives, you know, is it conducive? You know, children are a reflection of, you know, what they absorb. Okay, what they absorb. They go to school. Who are the people that they mix with? Of course, it is with their peer groups, and they are supposed to be obedient. Okay, so it's teachers. We in school and even at home, we are just talking and inculcating just this value of being obedient, not empathy values, And in school, it's all about education, achievement, accomplishment, not about care, not about welfare. So if you don't inculcate, develop all this, how do you expect children to come out as a flower?
Mhm.
And that's why I wrote that, you know, they manifest through through the cases that we see. We are equally responsible to this because we foster those narratives, we foster conditions and situations, and this is what we get from our children, unfortunately.
Do you think that, and I'm not just talking about kind of the Malaysian authorities, but in general, Malaysian public, so the families, schools, and the state, do you think that there is an understanding of the emerging forms of violence amongst youth? And I'm wondering whether that understanding ought to inform the way we respond to it, because I'm sure you, like I have, seen all kinds of calls online to bring back corporal punishment. This is how you should respond to it. This is how we should, you know, ban this and shut that off and implement limits here and CCTVs everywhere. How do you think those responses, what does it reflect to you about how we understand the trends of youth violence today?
Okay, my views, this is my views, yeah, from and from a criminological point, from a legal point as well. Firstly, putting CCTV is great, but CCTV is just to identify what is happening. It is not going to address the root cause, okay? It's not addressing school violence. It's an analogy, is same thing as, you know, when you put CCTV at a home to avoid, you know, people breaking in. So you will not avoid people from breaking in. The CCTV functions as equipment that can identify someone, record someone. Even identification is, you know, number two. So that is one thing. Now, about I've been hearing also about, you know, all these talks about bringing back caning, you know, and then this morning, you know, I heard that, you know, caning was not taken away. It's just the headmaster only now who has the power, for example. For me, I do not agree. Why are we so fixated with caning? So we are basically saying that infliction of pain and harm and injury is the best resort to teach children or to sentence them to their wrongdoings. Is that what we are actually saying? Yes, because the infliction of pain does not deter a crime or a wrongdoing. You have to reason this thing. There must be remorse. There must be an understanding that by the child of what that child did was wrong. It's the same thing with an adult. You don't inflict pain. So what we are actually fostering is that we are actually showing that the state or authority legitimizes pain in exchange of wrongdoing. What does that do? It does not deter crime. You don't get people who are remorseful. You don't get understanding. So you have to look at alternative ways. There are many alternative ways. Come on, our ASEAN countries, you know, if you look at Thailand, they have also restricted, they've prohibited punishment. Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam. And if you look at countries like New Zealand, Finland, Norway, they have alternative ways of punishing. For example, meeting apologizing to the person that they did wrong, seeing remorse, writing reflective, words, doing communal service. I'm very much a proponent of communal service, you know, doing those times. There are many ways, but why do we only think about bring back the rotan, bring back? What does the rotan do? The rotan don't do anything. What the rotan does is that it gives you lingering trauma. You will grow up feeling sometimes inferior, distrust towards authorities, and pain and scars. But it does not help in any other way. Yeah. So that's what I think.
Dr. Haezreena, thank you so much. I really appreciate you, you're very passionate about this clearly, but I appreciate you sharing those insights with us today. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you. Dr. Haezreena Begum Abdul Hamid, they're wrapping up this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris, signing off for the evening. Thank you so much for watching, and good night.